I want to give you one more example. So on gun control, I'm extreme left, right? I have a position that, to your point, in Europe and other parts of the world, Japan is perfectly normal, but in America is totally practically politically undoable, which is, I think you should be able to have a gun, but it needs to be in a safe locker outside of your house.
In this video, Cenk Uygur gets called out by his TYT co-host. Cenk Uygur's co-host suggests that he is coming across as right-wing as opposed to progressive with his recent rhetoric. With that, let's watch Cenk Uygur's own employee call him out on his show, the Young Turks.
So now if you call yourself a moderate, people are like, oh, okay, which corporation do you represent, right? So, but there are people who are actually closer to the center, right? So am I center left? Hell yeah, I'm on the left. It's not even within ask any right winger, ask any mainstream person, ask any established person, we're on the left. But am I as far as some others? No, I'm not. But on the populist establishment spectrum, I'm all the way at the end. I'm an extreme populist. And I say that, and I say it proudly. Right? And so, and we had somebody on our Operation Hope Town Hall on Wednesday say, I bought wokeleft.org and radicalleft.org because I'm so proud of it.
Yeah.
Right? God bless, that's great, right? But if we get defined as the positions that are the most unpopular, we cannot win. So I need to define us in a different light now. Otherwise, the baby's gonna get thrown out with the bathwater. And so I don't want that, to be honest. And besides which, I don't agree. So if I say, okay, I'm a proud whatever, right? And then people are gonna go, oh, okay, so you agree to all these positions. No, I don't agree to those positions. So it's misleading as well. So Jordan, the question I wanted to ask back is, what's the best term to use? Because we don't agree. Like there's some issues. I don't think it's a lot of issues, and I think it's overhyped how much we disagree. But there is some disagreement. So how do I refer to that disagreement? Do you see what I'm saying? How do I refer to the folks that we disagree with? So here, sorry, before you answer, but think about it. I want to give you one more example. So on gun control, I'm extreme left, right? I have a position that, to your point, in Europe and other parts of the world, Japan is perfectly normal, but in America is totally practically politically undoable, which is, I think you should be able to have a gun, but it needs to be in a safe locker outside of your house in a controlled.
Isn't that a great plan for gun ownership in the United States that Cenk has there? Do you tell the burglar or the mass murderer coming into your house to hurt your family, hold on, I've got something for you, but I need to take a quick 30-minute drive to the facility to pick up my gun? He gives a lot of bad takes, but his position on that is so stupid. To what they're talking about, I actually can sympathize with Cenk a little bit, because titles or names for what you are politically, I don't know a better word than this, but they're dangerous. They're dangerous in the sense that if someone identifies as a Republican or Democrat, we'll just use those two for simplicity. While we shouldn't think this way, and I have to check myself on this kind of thinking at times, and I'm hoping I'm not the only one. I'd imagine there's folks watching this right now that can relate. But if you label yourself anything, then people are probably less inclined to have a conversation with you because they assume they know all of your positions. As I've started doing political commentary on a couple channels on YouTube, I really try to avoid the word Republican, conservative, the right, but they need to be described as something. You know, you need to describe what you're talking about or an ideology with some word. So now I kind of use them all interchangeably, but I guarantee there are people that don't view those as the same thing. So I don't think it's necessarily important. I'd rather just be labeled as my name, you know, as opposed to you know, I'd rather just be referred to as my name, but I guess you do kind of need a starting point when you're speaking with someone to at least try to understand where they're coming from. But I think people are less inclined to speak with one another, which is really important for unifying the country, people are going to rather be more inclined to speak with one another about important issues and try to find common ground and agree to disagree if you don't have a label. But unfortunately, in conversations, sometimes you just can't avoid those words. You know, I tried forever to say I lean to the right, but come on, man. I mean, just speaking for myself, all of my positions are to the right, which, now this is in my opinion, that makes them just normal positions, because I think anything left of center now, you start to get into crazy territory. But anyway, I understand what they're talking about as far as labels relating to a person's ideology, and I don't know if there's an answer to it. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Area. That's exactly what Japan does. Okay. And so if you want to go hunting, you go get your gun from the locker, etc. But no one has guns, so they have 0 gun homicides. We have 60,000 gun homicides. But I know I'm not going to win on that, right? But if you say to me within the American political spectrum, you're extreme left on that issue, I say, yeah, that's right, I am, right? So I'm not offended by that. That's just on that issue, that's who I am, right? So if you called me radical left on that, I probably wouldn't like that, because I'm like, I don't think it's a radical position. The rest of the world does it, and etc. So that's why, let's pick a word that makes sense.
I don't know. I understand why you think there should be more accurate labels. I think the words that you have used in these conversations have been unhelpful because people might see them as a pejorative. Extreme, max, radical. Some people, of course, there's some people who take that up proudly, right? But I think to many well-meaning people who aren't familiar with what you're talking about, right? They might see that as a slight or an insult. So I think that's a little unhelpful. For me personally, what term I would call myself, I don't know. When I was younger, I was, oh yeah, I'm a liberal, then I was progressive, then I was a leftist, and now it's like, I don't care. Like I want certain policy outcomes. I will do whatever I can to contribute to that work. And if it happens, great. And if it's unpopular, I don't care, because it's what I believe in. There are people who make their political identity a label proudly, and to what I see, the extent of their activism is just correcting people and say, well, I'm not a liberal, I'm a leftist. Congrats, man. I just like, I think it's all hollow. It's a lot of it's performative. I'd like to see a multi-party system where maybe I do have a label and a party that fits into it. But I think in our current system, a lot of that's subjective and people could misinterpret it. So I do think it's undercutting what I know you're trying to do, and I don't think it's the most useful.
Yes.
Is it any surprise that this dude that Cenk is talking to, the first thing he talks about is feelings? He says, well, if you say things like extreme or max or radical, you know, that could hurt some people's feelings. He didn't say that, but offend some people or whatever. That doesn't happen on the right, really. I mean, unless you called me, I don't know, a neo-Nazi or white supremacist, but that doesn't happen. I mean, again, I think the words we most commonly use are conservative, right-wing, Republican, and anything that would be considered a pejorative kind of was manufactured by the left, like alt-right or extreme right. I mean, they call the MAGA movement extreme right, you know, and that's a pretty large percentage of the country. So it doesn't happen as much on the right, because I believe that the right wing, the majority of people, I can't speak for everyone, the majority of people on the right wing find commonality in their values, and that's what a lot of the right wing's beliefs are rooted in, especially Judeo-Christian values, which I don't think the left's rooted in at all. So you've got a great foundation, so you can have conversations with someone on the right that you agree on 80% of things, but you both feel very strongly in opposite directions on 20% of things. The difference between the right and the left is we can have a conversation on the right and, like I said, agree to disagree, at least try to understand where the other person's coming from, and people don't walk away with hard feelings. On the left, if you do not agree with every single talking point / wild, way too far left belief, you know, that men are women, or that men should play women in sports, or tampons in boys' restrooms, they will shame you, vilify you, boot you from the party. That just doesn't happen on the right. I genuinely believe the right wing is much more reasonable. So I'm not going back on what I said as far as like being labeled as something, because, you know, if you label me as that guy's a Republican, that guy's a conservative, it kind of makes you boring. I'm just me, and I have opinions, and I'd like to talk to someone and let them get to know what my opinions are, as opposed to a label giving them a preconceived notion as to what every single one of my beliefs are. Because why would anyone talk to me at all? Like, there's nothing to learn about me if they prejudge me based on a label. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
So I hear you, and that's another fine disagreement to have, because I need to distinguish it. If I don't distinguish it, we're all in the same boat with the most unpopular. And in fact, again, back to the gun control example, I would, like, if I'm talking about it, I'd say, look, let's say I'm on a right-wing show or a mainstream media show or something. I'd say, yeah, I'm extreme left on gun control, but I know I'm not going to win. And why do I say that about my own position? Because I don't want to hurt the rest of the party, the rest of the movement, by attaching a super unpopular position, right or wrong. Obviously, I think it's right. It's my position. It works for the rest of the world, right? And so, but I don't want to attach that unpopular position to paid family leave and Medicare for all. You see what I'm saying? So, but that requires a little bit of, you know, recognition of what your positions are and what's popular and what's not popular. Mm-hmm. And when, you know, Justice Democrats ousted me, and there I could have caught a lot of feelings, right? And I could have said, screw these guys. And I could have said, don't donate to them, don't help them. And I didn't. I said, eyes on the prize. They got to get elected so we could win on policy, right? And so, do you see the others doing eyes on the prize? Guys, let's make sure we win so we could win on policy so your lives can improve? Or do you see a lot of, I'm better than him, I'm more pure, etc.? And then I was using max lefts, I was trying that one. Mm-hmm. And then I got pissed and I went back to radical left. And the reason is because the guys who are making those, the bad faith arguments, mm-hmm. they are radicals. They're saying, if you don't agree with me 100%, you shouldn't even be allowed to talk. You shouldn't be allowed to have that freaking opinion, and you're definitely a right winger, and you're racist, and all these other things. That's so extreme and radical as a way of conducting yourself, right? So, but I hear you.
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
I'll walk that back.
Well, okay. I also don't want to discount. Then there were people who were angry.
Yeah.
Let's take the trans issue. I think that's one where, like, you and I definitely don't agree, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's, like, I know there's, like, the core rights I think you're on board with. I would hope so.
Yeah, 100%.
But then there's other things that, like, the extremely, like, politically unpopular things, right? So this wasn't her, like, campaign. Trump, it was his policy, but it became a lightning rod issue. The gender affirming care for undocumented people. You know, it's like a buzzword of all these things that are just designed to trigger, like, the independent or moderate or Republican voter. I don't care about that. You know, it's just like, and I think if you're going to go out at a time where you know it's going to get even worse for trans people, and you have people like Matt Walsh in front of the Supreme Court saying, like, we're not going to stop until we erase all of trans existence. Now, I'm not saying you're on that side. I'm saying at a moment like this where it gets really difficult and it's going to get harder for people, I think a lot of people are concerned and wondering why even talk about things like this that aren't even really up for debate right now, because it could just play into the right's hand.
Why even discuss issues like the trans issue? Because normal people care about truth. And normal people know that someone who believes they're trans, most likely that is a symptom of a much more deep-rooted psychological problem, and that should be treated. We have empathy on the right. I also haven't met a single person on the right that says, if you're over 18 and you want to live your life that way, that's fine. We don't agree with it, but okay. But there's zero question that kids are now almost being encouraged to question their gender, which is bananas. And when you start messing with people's kids, it's a big issue no matter how small you think it is, because if it keeps going at this rate, convincing kids they can be whatever gender they want, it's not going to be a small issue. So conservatives are trying to cut this issue off at the pass. After 18, do whatever you want. You're an adult, but don't mess with kids. And the final thing I'll say, I don't think, and I'm biased, of course I'm biased, but I don't think the right wing has as many different issues that are considered extreme as the left, because the left has gone crazy. Now, the left would label some things as extreme, like if I'm pro-life, but I don't think it's extreme to value life and not want to murder babies. That's not extreme to me. They may think that we're extreme that we like the Second Amendment. That's not extreme. It's in our country's founding documents and a right that was afforded to us. The left makes up rights such as abortion. They believe that's a right for everybody. It 100% isn't. Who says you're owed that right? And then all the trans garbage and what is a woman and everybody's racist. Those things are extreme. And that's why you have to agree with all the crazy garbage with the left and the extreme crazy garbage on the left if you want to be accepted by them. Otherwise, you'll get the boot. But we want to hear from you. What do you guys think? Is Cenk moving closer to the right wing, or is it just a business move on his part? And am I wrong? Is there a sect of the right wing that's extreme? Again, I acknowledge maybe you could put white supremacists or neo-Nazis or something like that in there, but that's not a part of the right wing that any normal conservative identifies themselves with. So I don't put that in the same category as the left. You know, they don't hear somebody say a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man and say that's ridiculous. We don't associate with that. They say, come on in. Yeah, let's make this an issue. So let us know what you think. Anyway, that's it for this video. As always, we really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.